it just me, or is Gabriel Agreste like the worst villain in the history of TV? In the history of mainstream superhero media? In the history of the world? And I'm not talking about, oh dear, he's such a dastardly monster, a bully, a cretin, an abuser. I hope he gets what's coming to him at some point. I'll keep watching until he does. No, I'm talking just badly written, badly executed, badly done, just bad. And look, I'm going to fess up right now. Previously, like a year ago or so, I made a video talking about how Gabe was such a great and well-written villain. Okay, so that's pretty damn annoying in hindsight, but you know what? There's never any shame in admitting that you were wrong or that things have changed and you've altered your opinions. And for me, that's exactly what's happened. Either I've sustained a head injury that's made me view things in a completely different light, or the writing just doesn't hold up under scrutiny when all is said and done. The whole Agreste arc, in and of itself, it ended up being a bit of a bust in my opinion, despite having so much promise. It just faltered and faltered hard during season 5, and became really terrible. And then it had one of the lamest endings of all time. And so maybe that's part of why I've well and truly done a 180 on his character arc, his story, in the last year or so. But yeah, it just isn't good. And that's a shame because it does start out with a lot of promise. When we first meet the character, Gabe, aka Hawkmoth, is deeply generic, like a classic Scooby-Doo style evil villain with his stereotypical laugh and his goofy costume and his desire for world domination. Yes, early Gabe would rant about how he's going to take over the world, which doesn't really make sense in hindsight, but this was early season weirdness, you can forgive it. A time where the writers clearly knew what his motivations were, but didn't want to jump the shark and reveal it all too soon. So he comes off a bit undercooked, half-baked, and just pretty cookie cutter. And then on top of that, all his villains, they're constantly getting schooled by a bunch of rookie teenage heroes. It's not exactly an inspiring start to his career. But there was room to grow, and grow the story did. Revealing that not only is Hawkmoth actually Adrian's father, Gabriel Agreste, but that he's been trying to get his hands on the Miraculouses so he can use the magic cat / ladybug wish to bring his dead wife Emily back to life. And so suddenly you combine the character development and the storyline that you'd already given Gabe into the very bland character of Hawkmoth. And suddenly his interactions with Adrian, the neglect, the abuse, it all ties up into that and into this new motivation, and thus season 2 Gabe has a lot more depth. You have his motivations, they make a lot of sense and they inform the character. He became so much more understandable and relatable. But you don't really grow to like him. Despite all of that, he has some funny moments, like when he does the Simon Says stuff, or when he lays the verbal smackdown on people like Lila or Chloe or whatever, but for the most part, the show does resist making him a cool villain, and it keeps him hateable. He keeps on neglecting Adrian, he keeps treating him and his friends badly, doesn't spend any time with him, and he creepily lusts after his lost love the entire time, whilst also going out of his way to torment his son's friends so he can possess them and use them to do his bidding. And all the while, he also recklessly is trying to get his hands on the Miraculouses, one of which is unwittingly in the hands of his own son, whom he has once again unwittingly sworn a blood feud against. And at the time, really well done stuff. The way he mistreats everybody and he just shits all over his son's life, he hurts people, straight up allows Natalie to keep using the Peacock Miraculous, even though he knows for a fact it's eventually going to kill her. All because of his determination to succeed. It's very compelling and hateable, and thus it makes you want to see the heroes win. It makes you want to see them triumph, to see Ladybug and Cat Noir take this dude to school and lay the smack down. Whatever you want to say about the overall writing quality of the show itself, pacing and all that kind of thing, what's never been in doubt up to this point is that those early couple of seasons, they went hard on ensuring there'd be no groundswell of support for the villain, like there would be for someone like Darth Vader or the Joker. Because Gabe is not a badass, he's an abuser who's pretty incompetent. His plans were shit, and he would choose the absolute worst characters and power sets to try to fight against the heroes. Those were the days, the glory days. But of course, nothing seems to last forever, and thus the days did start to turn a little bit sour. It was a gradual thing, a slow decline, small things that would seem innocuous at first, but would contribute to really changing my perspective on things, and really making him seem like a bit of a poorly crafted character with a poorly crafted storyline. And I do think it was a range of things, but I think it first starts with Gabe. He gets smarter and just better at his job in general. He becomes a better villain. And you might be thinking, oh, well, that's a pretty weird thing to be complaining about, Smarty Pants. Why would you care that Gabe actually developed intelligence over the course of the show? Why would you care that his plans get steadily better and better and better until they become literally perfect. Well, because when you have an episodic show where the point is that pretty much every single episode is going to revolve around the fact that you need an absurd amount of plot contrivance and plot armor in order for your heroes to even have the slightest chance in hell to defeat the villain episode after episode, then the story is going to start to lose its luster, and the narrative is slowly but surely going to dry up as a result. I mean, how many times did we have to see Ladybug? Because let's be real, Cat Noir is going to be a non-entity in this sort of stuff anyway. How many times did we see Ladybug pull some really obscure and random finishing sequence literally out of nowhere at the drop of a hat? A sequence which would in turn defeat Gabe and his villain and make him look like a fool. It would either be that, where she just pulls it out of her ass and wins, or Gabe has a moment after being super smart all episode long of suddenly becoming the dumbest person on the planet. Like that one time that he had access to time travel. He had it won. He was going to win, and he screws it all up because for one moment, his motivation inexplicably changes from wanting to get the Miraculouses at any cost to bring back his wife without caring who gets hurt, in order to erase all the bad stuff that's happened to him and his family, shifting into wanting to punish Ladybug and Cat Noir and get revenge on them and make them suffer, which, what? No. It's just the dumbest thing ever. It was trash tier writing from the get-go. And so, in that vein, do you kind of understand what I'm starting to get at, what I mean? They made him too smart, too strong, too many abilities, too much. And so in the end, they have to screw him over. The narrative, the story, it has to change at the last second to screw him out of the victory, because otherwise Marinette and Adrian, they really don't have a chance in hell. And that cheapens the plot. For the older fans amongst you, it's like in the original Yu-Gi-Oh show. Like, we're going old school here. Since the card game was not real, you could have your main characters pull a new rule for a new card directly out of their ass. And this would allow them to win from impossible situations. And even as a kid, it feels insulting to your intelligence at some point. Oh no, I only have 50 life points remaining. Good thing I have this ultimate card that instantly beats you. Ha ha ha! And this really does have a similar vibe. And I think it also kind of contributed to the rise in anti-Marinette sentiment. She used to be very popular, even amongst the hardcore fans. But then I think the more she won, the more she just kept winning and being impossible to defeat no matter what, no matter how strong Gabe was, the fan base did start to turn on her a little bit. I mean, the Adrian being sidelined thing didn't help either, but this was a part of it as well, because she kept winning against the impossible odds from out of nowhere again and again. And so, that's really a failing for the writing of the villain, because it's no longer doing what a good villain should be doing, making you want to support the heroic character, elevating it. And so yeah, big time fail. And then on top of that, we have the weird pancakes arc for Gabe's final season, where after realizing he doesn't have much time left to live, Gabe decides, stuff it, I'm gonna be a good dad, very briefly. Only for it to last a couple of weeks until he goes full psycho and starts to abuse his son, like fully psychologically abuses his son, culminating with him moving cities, forcing his son to stay in a sterile jail cell type of deal, and planning to force him to marry and breed with Kagami like some sort of sick stud horse type of deal. Ugh, just kind of pushed it all way too far, past the point of no return. Makes him irredeemable, completely trash, awful, hideous, and that's fine, right? Villains can be that. Except then in the end, what happens? He ends up doing the noble sacrifice. He gives his life with the wish to restore Natalie and Emily to life, and by doing so, he crumbles to dust. And he gets a statue in the park. He's a hero, remembered as the hero who helped to stop Monarch, with Adrian hoping to live up to his example. Excuse me, whilst I vomit quietly in the bushes at this boy idolizing his abusive father. I think if they had it just be a sad ending where Gabe still sucks and they acknowledge he sucked, but he does the right thing at the last second, it would have been okay. But having him do all this truly awful shit in season 5 and then finish off with him drifting off into the sunset as a hero, nah, I don't think so. It just doesn't work. And in the end, it serves to further tarnish the character. Like they didn't have an idea of what they wanted to do with him, how to finish him off, and were simply flying by the seat of their pants in the writer's room. Oh, this would be cool. Oh, and we should add some of this. And then we should do this thing with the pancakes. That would be so cool. Oh! They were too concerned with whether they could. They forgot to ask if they should. And no, the answer was no. And so the verdict, the concept of Gabe the villain, is fun, the bumbling, idiot, evil mastermind who gets obliterated by kids in spandex, but who has a sympathetic side as well. It's funny, it's excellent, it's hateable, and it really was before it was hampered by changing the fundamentals, making him too smart to beat realistically, so needing your heroes to have plot armor, which nobody likes, and trying too hard to both have him be the most irredeemable piece of shit on the planet, whilst also giving him a heroic send-off and finale, a redemption of sorts. It doesn't feel right, and it spoils the early seasons in retrospect, as now you know where it's all going. And so yeah, it's just really sad. And so with all that being said, not much else to say, and so these have been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of Gabe as a villain? You think he's well made, well written, well designed? Or maybe not, maybe you agree with me. I'm curious for your thoughts though, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.